Hello, and welcome to the second Ghostlight tour of the Smith Opera House in Geneva, New York. Since you can't come to the Smith right now for our history tours, we'll bring the history to you. I'm Chris Woodworth, and I'll be your tour guide. I want to take a moment to thank Austin Jennings, who contributed a portion of the research for this week's episode. So without further ado, here's Episode 2. What's that smell? The Smith Opera House opened in 1894. A look back at issues of the Geneva Daily Times or the Geneva Advertiser from those early years reveals that audiences were afforded an eclectic and sometimes bizarre array of performance offerings. Theater managers were often looking for novelty performances that would pack the house. Some of these shows were pretty stinky, literally. Today, we're going to talk about 3 productions that were staged in the 1890s that had one peculiar element in common. They made theater-going an olfactory experience. On December 14th and 15th, 1894, the Smith hosted the touring production of Bartholomew's Equine Paradox. The stars of this show trotted, cantered, and galloped onto stage because they were live horses. 24 of them to be exact. Equestrian drama, hippodrama, horse drama, whatever you call it, the use of horses in performance, from theater to circus to rodeo, has a long and storied history in the United States. In the run-up to the Geneva performance, the Geneva Gazette excerpted a review of the piece from a recent Philadelphia engagement at the Chestnut Street Opera House. The reviewer described the performance and the remarkable horse performers. The horses played school, held a trial in humorous fashion, took part in a tug-of-war, played The Last Rose of Summer and Home Sweet Home on bells, played tag, accomplished wonderful leaps at a picnic, and every other thing imaginable except talk. Following the Geneva performances, Equine Paradox also graced stages in Rochester and Elmira. If the ads for those performances are to be believed, then Equine Paradox has been praised by over 1 million persons, the only entertainment patronized by all classes, and that has never had an unfavorable criticism. If you're wondering why this performance might have brought an unusual smell into the theater, well, then you've probably not spent any time in a horse barn before. In 1898, we move from horses to a horseless carriage on the stage. Playwright Elmer E. Vance was inspired by the Bolie tricycle, a gasoline-powered machine. He created his own version of the vehicle, which was driven onto the stage during the performance of his play, Patent Applied For. It was performed at the Smith Opera House on Friday, January 28, 1898, and featured H.H. Horton as Henry Milburn, the inventor. In the play, Milburn has invented an automobile and sets out to patent his invention. The villain steals Milburn's plans, leading to a climactic scene on board a ship as a storm at sea threatens to imperil the lives of our hero and heroine. Although the boat ends up wrecked and sinking, they manage to survive. The play concludes with a courtroom scene which, of course, restores the patent to its rightful inventor. Through the use of the automobile on stage, the play became much more than just a melodrama. It was a showcase for the new horseless carriage, advertising the advances in transportation technology. To further sell his play, Vance gave rides in his horseless carriage prior to the play's start. Unless the weather had prevented it, people would have indeed ridden the streets of Geneva in Vance's contraption. That interactive aspect of Patent Applied For is what truly made it a community event, not just another play. Its unique combination of melodrama, showcase, and interactive ride makes it a fascinating moment in the rich history of the Smith Opera House. And the inevitable release of gasoline fumes into the theater would have made this one production where you might not have minded sitting further away from the stage. In April 1896, the melodrama Alabama took the stage at the Smith. The performance was a special benefit for the ushers, meaning that they would have been given a cut of the proceeds from that night's performance. The play was written by Augustus Thomas, a playwright who has largely disappeared into obscurity. Thomas strove to create a sense of atmosphere in his plays, many of which were set in a fictionalized version of the South. As one critic noted, however, Alabama had too much atmosphere and too little action. Act 3 of Alabama is set at the ruined gateway of the Preston family home, with moonlight shining down. To further set the atmosphere of this moonlight and magnolia moment during the 1896 performance, the auditorium was pumped with perfume, provided by the local druggist W.H. Partridge, whose shop was a nearby Seneca Street neighbor. As with many plays of this period that depict the Civil War or post-Civil War era, racial tensions and the traumas of chattel slavery are erased in favor of depicting grotesque stereotypes of the happy slave, or in this case, former slave, played by Caucasian actors in blackface. These outrageous depictions were clearly alluring to audiences, as Alabama ran for several years in New York City before touring throughout the country. While the perfume might have been sweet, the stench of racism was anything but. For more information on the history of the Smith Opera House, please visit our history blog, which can be found on our website, thesmith.org. You can also learn how to become a member of the Smith and how to make a donation. We'll see you next time for another ghost-like glimpse of the history of the Smith.